وما زاد الله عبدا بعفو إلا عزا وما رفع أحد لله إلا رفعه أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Respected brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us in this world, and this is a place that He has designed in such a way that it is not a place of compensation or retribution. It is not the real place of compensation or retribution. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made this place or designed this place that a person will get the full reward of his actions in this dunya, or the full retribution or the jaza in this world as well. That place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in the akhirah. The akhirah is a place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give the full compensation for his good actions in the akhirah, and also the full retribution for a person's mistakes and sins that he has committed and was not forgiven. That is kept in the akhirah. But in this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not kept this world a place of compensation or retribution. So when a person is doing something good or a person is doing something bad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya treats him accordingly, according to his capacity. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, just to highlight this, وَلَئِنْ أَذَقَنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنَّا رَحْمَةً ثُمَّ نَزَعْنَاهَا مِنْهُ إِنَّهُ لَيَئُوسٌ كَفُورٌ وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ نَعْمَاءَ بَعْدَ ضَرَّاءٍ مَسَّتْهُ لَيَقُولَنَّ ذَهَبَ السَّيِّئَاتُ عَنِّي إِنَّهُ لَفَرِحٌ فَخُورٌ. So in these two verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the attitude of this human being. Right? And that is that when we make him taste, وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ, when we make this human being taste, مِنَّا رَحْمَةً, from us some mercy, and this is prosperity, this is a good life, this is a prosperous life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, when we make him taste from us some mercy in this dunya, some wealth in this dunya, some prosperity in this dunya, some good, good feelings in this dunya. ثُمَّ نَزَعْنَاهَا مِنْهُ, then a time comes when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala snatches us away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes this prosperity away from him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes this good feeling away from him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the good life from him, and he starts to experience, negative, emotions. A person starts to experience adversity, or loss in his life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala snatches away from him. So Allah mentions his reaction is what? إِنَّهُ لَيَئُوسٌ كَفُورٌ. He becomes ungrateful and despondent. He loses hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one of the attitudes of this human being. Right? When he is enjoying his life, he's all well, he's all fine. He doesn't remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this mercy and the rahmah that Allah has mentioned here, that this is the rahmah from him that is coming to him. He forgets all of that. But when it's snatched away from him, then he becomes despondent. He becomes ungrateful. Why is this happening to me, and so on. And then the next part Allah mentions, وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ نَعْمَاءَ بَعْدَ ضَرَّاءٍ. If he's going through some hardship, if he's going through some difficulty, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes him taste some na'mah, some blessings, some ni'mah, right? And he starts to enjoy prosperity. He starts to enjoy a good life. His things are going well in his life, with his family, with his work, and so on. So وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ نَعْمَاءَ بَعْدَ ضَرَّاءٍ, then Allah mentions his attitude becomes what? لَيَقُولَنَّ ذَهَبَ السَّيِّئَاتُ عَنِّي. That all the adversity, all the difficulties have gone away now. I've overcome that. I'm in control now. I'm in control of my life, right? That was only a bad patch. I was only experiencing that for a while. I've overcome all of that. I have control. Everything is going good. It's all mine, right? I'm enjoying it. لَيَقُولَنَّ ذَهَبَ السَّيِّئَاتُ عَنِّي إِنَّهُ لَفَرِحٌ فَخُورٌ. So Allah mentioned now he becomes arrogant, right? So this is the attitude. He becomes arrogant. He thinks that this is all because of my experience and my talent and my wealth and my movements here and there. So he becomes arrogant. He does not appreciate that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyways, this is the attitude of this human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is described here in these two places. But the word that has been used to mention what I mentioned in the beginning, which is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not designed this life to compensate or retribute a person in this dunya fully. So the scholars, they mention that these two verses, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that He has given someone prosperity, who has given some going through some hardship or adversity, the word that has been used here is describing this point, is that وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ. So in the Arabic language, this means that when we make him taste, right? أَذَقْنَا is taste. So when we make him taste in this dunya the blessing and adversity or prosperity, which means that in this dunya, if a person is receiving something good, if a person is receiving blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is receiving ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's going through good conditions, or he's going through a good life, prosperity or adversity. On the other hand, if he's going through some hardships, it is only a taste that is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person is only tasting it. He's only tasting the blessing in this dunya. Right? He's only tasting the hardships in this dunya. But in the akhirah, it's to the max. Right? A person is going to taste it in the maximum capacity. So in other words, when he's going to go in Jannah, he's going to taste the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the maximum capacity, to his full. Right? To his full. وَتَلَذُّ الْأَعْيُنِ, that his nafs and his soul will experience a goodness to its capacity, and his eyes will be full as well. Right? So that's in the akhirah. So in this dunya, this is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created and that we are living through. So anyways, in this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this moment and this life to appreciate things. The hadith that I mentioned in the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ has made 3 declarations. And I'll just share that with you and end that with it. The 3 declaration that the Prophet ﷺ has given is something that we need to live by. It's something that we need to appreciate. Because only the Prophet ﷺ can give us such advice. Right? Very concise, very brief, but very meaningful, and something that will help an individual navigate his life in this dunya till he reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the 3 declarations, number 1, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, مَا نَقَصَتْ صَدَقَةٌ مِّن مَالٍ. That sadaqah and charity does not decrease wealth. Full stop. Right? When a person gives charity, it does not decrease his wealth at all. Right? So this is the conviction that we need to bring upon ourselves. When a person is spending, when a person is taking some wealth out and spending in charity, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person should never think to himself that my wealth is decreasing. Right? In this time of materialism, when a person is all worried of how much is coming and how much is going and how much I'm profiting, how much I'm losing, this is a time when a person is always watchful of what he spends, how much he's spending. Right? But the Prophet mentioned, and just imagine he is addressing the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, where we know that majority of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were in a poor state. But despite this, the Prophet is encouraging them to spend, and also saying to themselves, have this conviction that when you spend in the path of Allah, remember that your wealth is not decreasing. In the Quran, Allah mentions, يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. Right? يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. When it comes to interest and usury, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will obliterate it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will wipe it out. يَمْحَقُ. يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will wipe out interest. وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. And charity that you are spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to multiply it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to increase it. Right? So in reality, when a person if a person is accumulating interest, he thinks to himself, my wealth is increasing. Right? And the more he gets, the more he thinks that, my bank balance is increasing. But in reality, it may appear as if it's increasing, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His word is haqq. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this promise that if a person is taking that, his wealth is actually decreasing. In what way? Maybe perhaps a person is accumulating all of that now, but a time will come, a person will lose all of it. Unseen circumstances will occur in his life when all of it is wiped out. And a person, then he thinks to himself, what happened here? Why did this happen? How did this happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning gives a person leave, respite. Let's see how far he goes. Right? So if a person continues, does not make tawbah, then a time comes when a person is experience some conditions or some hardships, and all of a sudden he loses all his wealth. So يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. Whereas a person who is spending in charity, a person, it may appear as if his wealth is decreasing, but in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the long run will increase his wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah in his wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe perhaps that person may have less, but the barakah comes in the form that less amount is enough for his needs, right? Even though as it may appear that it's not much, in numbers it's not much. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put barakah in it. In other words, that the amount that he has is enough for him. Right? The Prophet made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Wallah, Allahumma ja'al ala quti Muhammadin, Allahumma ja'al ala Muhammadin quta. Right? That, oh Allah, make the sustenance for my family enough. Right? That make the sustenance for my family enough. In other words, enough so that they can live and survive on it. So, مَا نَقَصَتْ صَدَقَةٌ مِنْ مَالٍ, the Prophet made this declaration that a person who gives sadaqah and charity in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you should realize that this is not going to decrease your wealth. Salman al-Farsi radiallahu ta'ala, he said, when a person he spends in charity, he's considered a generous person. When he is generous and he reaches the grave, then the earth will speak. This is the quotation of Salman radiallahu ta'ala, Salman al-Farsi radiallahu ta'ala. He said, when a person is lowered into the grave, then the earth, when the angels will come, the earth will say to a person who was generous, and he will say to the angels, the earth will speak and say that this person was sakhi, this person was generous, so you have no way close to him. Move away from him because he is going straight to paradise. And a person who was a bakhil, a person who was withholding wealth, the earth will say that you have all the right to go to him. This person did not spend in the path of Allah. This person was not generous. Right? Like in the hadith, the Prophet mentioned that sakhawa and bukhl, sakhawa, generosity, and being stinginess, this is like a tree in its respective place. Right? Sakhawa is like a tree in Jannah, and bukhl and stinginess, it's a tree in hellfire. If you hold on to sakhawa, you will reach paradise. If you hold on to bukhl and stinginess, it will take you towards the fire. So the Prophet here made this one declaration that whenever you spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, never think to yourself that this is going to decrease your wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah in your wealth. The second declaration that is mentioned in this hadith, the Prophet mentioned that وَمَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ وَمَا زَادَ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزًّا. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any individual that forgives others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase him in honor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase the honor of that individual who will forgive. Right? وَمَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزًّا. This person will get honor and izzah. He will get respect by forgiving others. We as human beings, we are social creatures, right? We interact with people. And it's obvious that we all have different temperaments, and due to that, there's going to be frictions, right? There's going to be frictions between ourselves, between our family members, between our friends and colleagues, and so on. There's always going to be differences. That's how we are as human beings. So when things go wrong, we need to have the courage and capacity, and also the maturity to forgive those who are doing wrong to us. Right? One person, he came to him, and he started complaining of his friend that this individual, he did this to me, he did that to me, he said this to me, he did all these bad things to me, what should I do? So Fudayl ibn Iyad radiallahu rahimahullah, he said that, you should just forgive him. So he said, no, I can't do that. It's occurred so many times, so I can't forgive this individual. So he said, okay, go take revenge then. But then he said, if you want to go on this path and you want to take revenge, just remember that when you take revenge, you have to take revenge according to the proportion of wrong that he has done to you. Right? The amount of wrong that he has done to you, make sure that you take that revenge accordingly. Because right now, he has done something wrong to you, you are the victim. Right? In other words, you are the madhloom, you are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the dua of madhloom is accepted. Right? But if you cross the limits, and you go to take revenge of the wrong that he has done to you, and you cross the limit, you give him more harm than what he has done to you, then the tables will be turned. Then he will be the victim, and you will be the oppressor. So just keep that in mind, right, before you do something. So he gave him this advice, so he thought to himself, what should I do, right? So it's better that I forgive that individual than to go on this path of revenge, because I will not be able to control myself, right? So in these situations, generally what happens is when someone does wrong to us, we react immediately instead of responding, right? Reacting and responding is two different things. Reaction comes immediately. At that moment, a person doesn't think and he just reacts. Response is a person calculates things. It takes a moment, it takes some time. Right? That's why they say that if a young individual, he comes and does something wrong to you, then wait 10 seconds before you respond. If a senior comes and does something wrong to you, right, wait a minute until you respond. And if your partner, your wife says something wrong to you, just keep counting. Just keep counting. Don't think about responding, right? So when someone does something wrong to you, then, take some time, be patient, compose yourself, and respond appropriately, right? So forgiving others, this is what the Prophet ﷺ has declared in this hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you izzah. When it comes to forgiveness and forgiving others, they say that pardon others, forgive others. They may not, or he may not, deserve the pardon, but you deserve the peace. Right? You deserve the peace. Because what happens when a person, something has been done wrong to him, that he starts thinking about it, he starts contemplating, what should I do? It starts to disturb his thoughts. That's why they say, صاحب العفو ينام على فراشه وصاحب الانتقام يتقلب على فراشه. Right? The Sahib al-Af, a person who forgives others, he sleeps peacefully at night. But a person who is always after revenge, I have to get that person, I'm going to say that to him tomorrow, he did this, that to me yesterday, I'm going to do this to him tomorrow, and so on. He's always constantly thinking, he can't sleep at night. Right? What am I going to do tomorrow? What should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? So he loses his sleep. It's disturbing his life. So in other words, you deserve the peace. Just forgive that individual. Right? So forgiving others goes a long way. That's why we have the example in Surah Yusuf. The brothers of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Someone said this beautifully, that the hands of the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, those hands were the same hands that threw him into the well. But a time came when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala flipped the situation and conditions, that they were the same hands that came to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam in times of need, in a state of desperation. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ قَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيزُ مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلَ وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْزِي الْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ. The same hand that threw Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam into the well were the same hand that came out of desperation asking Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam for help. Right? So these were those who did something wrong to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. But Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, at the end, we know, what was his statement? قَالَ لَا تَثْرِيبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْيَوْمِ يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. So here Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam forgave the mistakes and the wrongs that was done to him by his brothers. He had all the right to take revenge. But in one statement he forgave them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him izzah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this honor. Right? So this is always something that a person, if he adopts this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always give him izzah and honor in this dunya. And the last thing, the last declaration of the Prophet ﷺ is مَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ وَمَا تَوَاضَعَ أَحَدٌ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ. That a person does not humble himself for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates his status. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates his status. A person who becomes humble, a person who adopts humility, right? That's why the scholars, they explain this, concept of humility and tawadu. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is kibriya, right? He has kibr. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahu Akbar, we say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest. So the scholars explain, what does it mean of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He will raise the rank of that individual who humbles himself, who lowers himself? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates that humility of that individual. Why? Because if a person becomes arrogant and thinks to himself that I'm above all, or I'm above others, then this is a quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kabir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kibriya. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most high. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all. So in other words, this quality of being above all, being better than others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so much that He does not appreciate that. He does not appreciate this quality. So like, in the market, when there's products in the market, if some product is very, there's a large amount of that product in the market, then there's no value to it. You can get this anywhere. You can get this watch anywhere. There's not much value to it. But if a product is rare, then it gives it value, right? There's only one of a kind. You sell a watch, there's only one of a kind. Buy it. I'm the only one who has it, right? So if it's very rare in the market, it has value to it. So with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's enough of kibr, right? There's enough of kibriya, of greatness. So if a person is displaying that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not appreciate that. But there's no tawadu with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Humility is for this human being, is for the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person is displaying that humility and tawadu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates that. So in front of others, a person is humble, a person is, he does not consider himself better than others, right? He is always displaying this humility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate his status. That's why in the Quran, wherever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the Prophet in different places, Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi liyakuna lil'alamina nadhira. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi. Right? Different places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the state of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he displayed the highest amount of tawadu and humility in front of Allah. Right? At a time when he had the right to think to himself that he is above all. At a time when he had the right to display that greatness. The perfect example of that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were entering into Mecca victorious, right? At the time of Fath al-Makkah, when they were victorious, they overcame the enemy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this honor, and he was entering into Mecca victorious as a victor. Generally, when kings, they enter into a city which they have conquered, then they lift their heads high, and their necks are long, right? And they say that this is all because of us. This is all my doing. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, they describe his condition when the Prophet was entering into Mecca. He lowered his head so much it was as if it was touching the neck of the camel, right? In complete humility, without any display of arrogance or pride. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to adopt these qualities when it comes to our wealth. May Allah give us the ability to spend as much as according to our capacity. Whatever we spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should never think that it's going to decrease our wealth. We should try our best to forgive others as much as possible. Forgiving others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us honor and dignity. And also, we should try our best to become humble and adopt this quality of tawadu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate our rank and status in the akhirah. Allah give us a praise. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا